Welcome to the Love Coach in My Pocket podcast with your host, Whitney Kobrin, a dating and relationship expert and love coach. But I wasn't always an expert. I battled through years of heartbreak before I finally cracked the code on love, and now I'm here to share that hard-earned wisdom with you. You're in for a treat, getting the guidance you never learned growing up. Whether you're here for practical dating tips, expert advice, or deep talks on healing, this podcast is your go-to resource for lasting love. Get ready to feel empowered, inspired, and ready for love. Are you afraid of conflict? I know, conflict can be really scary, and we probably all have experienced conflict that didn't go well, that was actually really scary. So if that's you, tune in because we're going to be giving you some really great tips today to face conflict in a healthy way. I'm Whitney Kobrin, dating and relationship expert and love coach, and you are listening to the Love Coach in My Pocket podcast. Welcome. I hope you enjoy this episode. So, when we think about facing conflict, it's often about speaking up for ourselves and speaking up about what we need, what we want, what's not working, what's bothering us, what's upsetting us, what's frustrating us, right? And it can be scary because if you talk about what's wrong, you're going to end up talking about what's wrong, and it doesn't feel good. It makes us nervous. It makes our heartbeat race. It makes us worry that we could lose that person, that they could find us annoying or not like us because we want to start fights and pick. There's a lot of different reasons that we fear conflict, but ask yourself this: what happens when you don't speak up and have conflict? What happens when you just go along to get along? Well, a few things that can happen. One is that they don't really know you. You just act like you're fine with everything, and so they don't really know what you actually like and what your real preferences are. And this was the case in the movie Runaway Bride, if you remember that movie. In the end, she realizes that she was always just going along with what her boyfriend or the partner at the time wanted. And that doesn't work. It works for a while, and it makes things seem really easy, like, oh, we just like all the same things and just get along and never have any conflict. But I will tell you, even in the best relationships, we have to step up and speak up for ourselves and face these differences that are inevitable. However, there are right ways and wrong ways to do this. And I find that most people go through these stages where the first stage is that you don't speak up for yourself at all. You stuff it down, and eventually it ends up exploding. Or you just leave before you ever have to explode. Another thing that can happen if you don't face this is that you don't get more of what you want, right? If your birthday is coming up and you are not telling your partner what you want, let's say you want to be taken out to dinner, you want to invite a few friends, but you leave it up to him and you think, well, he should just know, right? I hear that all the time. He should just know. No, he shouldn't. He's not a mind reader. He don't know unless you tell him. And if you have a partner that you do tell him what you want and he doesn't do it, then you're not setting boundaries. So I'm going to give you 3 tips today for how to face conflict in a healthy way. All right. Number 1 is learn to self-regulate. So even before you talk about scripting or what to say and what not to say, it's important that you learn to self-soothe. And one of the ways that we can do this is through our physical touch. So when you get nervous just thinking about having this conversation, just try touching your skin, touching your hand, like petting yourself. I know, it might be weird, it sounds weird, but especially if you're alone and you're able to do this, it really does help. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which takes you out of your stress mode. It's also helpful to know what is your stress pattern, right? It's usually fight, flight, or freeze. So are you somebody that goes into fight mode automatically when you are activated or stressed? Are you someone that wants to run away and hide and not be a part of the conversation? That would mean that you're a flee stress person. Or do you freeze? You find that you just can't think of the words, you get intimidated easily, you just want to just be a deer in headlights when you are facing a difficult conversation or situation. There is a fourth stress response, which is, it's not officially one of these, but you might be doing this and it's important to mention, which is fawning. So imagine centuries ago, that someone was invading your town, and what do, right? You could either grab a weapon and try to fight them, you could find a hiding place or run away and hide or run away from them, or you might just freeze and be a deer in headlights and an easy target, or you might say, take me with you. I can help you. I know this land. I can cook for you. I can do things for you. That is fawning. And a lot of people-pleasing women that are afraid of conflict might automatically go into that. So figure out what your stress pattern is. Do you go into fight, flight, or freeze, or do you fawn? And then use this self-touch and soothing words to calm yourself down before you get into that stress mode, because you're not going to be able to have a good conversation if you're in fight mode, or you're not going to have a good conversation if you just run away and flee, and you're also not going to have a good conversation if you are frozen like a deer in headlights and can't find the words. So it's really important to regulate your nervous system and physically activate that part of you that reduces your stress. Then you could start the conversation. So that's step one, is regulating your nervous system. Step two is what to avoid. So what so many people do wrong is they point out everything that's wrong and just talk about everything that's wrong. I was really upset when you did this, and I'm not going to put up with that, and you this, and I this, and you this. You want to have a mindset that if this is your partner, your boyfriend, your husband, somebody that you care about, a friend, that you're on the same team, that it's me and you against the problem. So we're in this together. It's not about what they did wrong versus what you did wrong. So what you don't want to do is use the word you and be like, you did this. That will automatically trigger somebody's defensiveness. And then it becomes, you did this. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. And that's not helpful. I'll tell you what to say as our third tip here. Avoid calling names. Don't say you are a blank. It's not helpful. Avoid mocking. Me, you did it. Don't mock somebody and make a voice for them. It's really annoying. People hate it, and it will just trigger a fight. Avoid name calling. I said that. Hitting, throwing, right? If you're so mad that you could just throw something, tell your partner, I need a break to calm down, and then we can talk about this. And that's very different than stonewalling, which is just becoming like a stone wall that doesn't respond. That's actually really unhealthy, and it's a form of fleeing or running away or freezing. So you can tell them, I need a break, and we will get back to this and have the conversation. You're not completely avoiding it. You just need a minute to calm yourself down. So giving yourself a hug, petting your arms, touching your skin, your hair, your neck, your face, it works. It's pretty magical. It works even better if you use soothing words at the same time and say, it's okay, you can do this, we're going to get through this. And then you can face that conversation much better. Because if you go into it with what we call violent communication, the yelling, the screaming, the name calling, the mocking, all of that, you're not going to get anywhere. And if you have a cycle of this, you know, it just becomes the same fight over and over and you don't actually resolve anything. So tip number 3 is to practice conscious communication. Now, there's a lot to conscious communication, but in the simplest terms, it means that we focus on telling the other person how we feel and what we need. So instead of focusing on all the things they're doing wrong, let's use the example of he's been talking to his ex, they've been texting and you didn't know, and now he wants to meet up with her. And he's telling you, it's no big deal, we're just friends. You know, I'm telling you this, so I'm not hiding it from you. What are you so upset about? Like, you shouldn't be upset. All right, problem number 1 here is that we can't tell other people what they're supposed to feel or what they can feel. So it's important that we learn to validate each other's feelings. So you want your partner to be able to say, I understand that you feel upset. And you want to tell them, I feel upset. Like, I feel upset and that's just how I feel. And whether it's right or wrong or anything, that's just how I feel. And then the next part is to focus on what you want or what you need instead of focusing on what's wrong. So instead of going, I can't believe you would do this. You've been blah, blah, blah. She's this, she's that. You're this, you're that. None of that's going to help. You need to focus on what you want. So you could just say, and remember, you've already calmed yourself. You're already in a good place to be able to have this conversation. And you say, I feel upset. I don't want you to go and see your ex. And I really need you to let her know that that's just not going to work. And then pause and listen and see what he says. And that's a good way to start the conversation. So he might come back and say, well, I know you don't want me to, but I really want to. And so then you can get curious and say, why? Why do you want to see her? And maybe there's some valid reason. Maybe by him talking it out, he'll realize that it's not a great idea. It can go in a lot of directions, but it's important that you have these conversations, as scary as they might be. So I was inspired to talk about this because I was at a tarot reading event last night, and I do these events a lot every month in New York, and I love it because it's such an interesting one-on-one interaction with people. And I did a reading for a lovely girl named Alexis last night. I'll keep all the contact info confidential, but her name was Alexis, and she was wondering, should I stay with this guy? And if I don't stay with him, will I find someone else? And what showed up in the cards and the reading and intuitively was that she needed to have a conflict with him. She needed to step up and really let him know what she needs out of this relationship, what she needs out of him, because if she just leaves, she's not going to learn that skill. And she's just going to end up repeating the same pattern over and over again with the next guy. So it's just so imperative that we learn how to communicate in a positive way by focusing on I statements. I feel upset. You know, maybe he didn't do anything wrong, right? We need to acknowledge that possibility, that maybe it's just that I'm feeling a certain way. I could do other examples, like if it's your birthday and he didn't plan anything and you got upset. Well, you might just out of anger be like, you're this, you're that, you're an idiot, you're stupid, how could you not know that that's what I want? But again, that's not going to help anything. It's just going to be a fight. And it is possible to have conflict without fighting, to actually have a dialogue and a conversation without blowing up and ending things, but actually having a level-headed, straightforward conversation with someone in this way. Now, this is also easier said than done, but it is possible. And I've learned to do this, and it's made my existing relationship so amazing because nothing's swept under the rug, nothing is ignored. We face everything, we get through it, and we come to agreements. Now, I mentioned earlier that if you are clear about what you need with somebody and they don't do it, here's a tip for setting boundaries. A boundary is very different from nagging. Nagging is when you say, "Oh, please don't do that. I really don't want you to do that." And then they do it anyway. And then you say it again. "I really don't want you to do that. Don't do that." But they do it again anyway. So how do we avoid this? Have a consequence. So if my partner is leaving his dirty clothes in the bathroom every day after his shower and it's really annoying me, every day you might say it and they just don't listen. So you need to have a consequence. So you start with the conscious communication model of, I feel what? I feel frustrated when I walk into the bathroom and I see your dirty clothes there every day. I really need you to put them in the hamper. Here's where it goes from being just a request to being a boundary that you can set and enforce. It's when you say, if you don't, then I'm just going to start putting those clothes directly in the garbage. Right? Have a consequence. And the consequence doesn't always need to be, I'm leaving. That's not a good thing to do, to constantly threaten that you're going to leave someone. But there are many different possible outcomes. You could say, if you leave your clothes there, I'm going to have to pick them up and I'm going to be frustrated and then I'm going to be in a cranky mood. And I don't want to be in a cranky mood and you don't want me to be in a cranky mood. So it could be that simple, right? But you have to have a consequence that you will follow through with, right? If you say, I really want my birthday to be special and I'd really like you to plan a dinner out with these friends, can you please do that, right? Get their agreement first. Can you do that? Yes? Great. Because if you don't, then I'm going to end up sitting home alone crying all day on my birthday and that's not going to be fun, right? You can also have a consequence, if your boyfriend wants to go visit his ex, that first example, and you really don't want him to, the boundary might be, if you do that, I don't know if this relationship is going to work out because you're not respecting my request. You're not understanding my wishes, right? And again, you want to be open enough to listen to what they say too. Communication is always a two-way street. And if you have somebody who's getting into their stress mode of fight, flight, or freeze, then you want to start to teach them and talk to them to help them also be able to have a conversation when you're level-headed. So maybe it means that you take a break from the conversation and say, let's just both calm down and we can come back to this a little bit later, tonight, tomorrow, whenever that's going to be, but don't wait too long. All right, so if you are struggling with your communication, with dating, with your relationship, if you have these people-pleasing tendencies, I would love to speak with you, would love to help you. You can reach out to me on my website or download my app, the Love Coach in My Pocket app, and I would love to be able to help you with that. I have helped hundreds of women to communicate better and have better relationships, and it's not that hard once you know how to do it. And it is so life-changing, not only in your relationships, but in your whole life. Being able to speak up for yourself, knowing how to communicate in healthy, productive ways will just change your life. So I hope this was helpful. Again, the 3 tips: learn to self-regulate, don't do violent communication, and practice conscious communication. Thanks for listening and hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Love Coach in My Pocket, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, healing, and all sorts of topics related to these. Don't forget also to download the Love Coach in My Pocket app from the App Store for tons of free resources to support you on your journey.